if Starbucks is below $80 a share come December, I will strongly consider selling it to offset gains this year. Hello, my name is Victor, and Starbucks made it out of 2025 by the skin of their teeth. But in today's video, I want to ask the question, will Starbucks recover in 2026? Ooh, and let me tell you, 2025 was a year to forget for Starbucks, down 10% year over year, and easily the worst performer of my portfolio. And that is exactly why I have been keeping such a close eye on it ever since Q3 of 2025. And I want to provide a little bit more detail about my position in my portfolio for Starbucks. My average cost for the position is about $91 per share. And I have owned Starbucks in my portfolio since February of 2023. So we are coming up here on the 3-year mark for this stock. And usually this is around the time where I start being really critical and analyzing my position to see, is this position working out or not? But when I had a look at my P&L, my profit and loss, I am currently down 7.5% on Starbucks stock. Not exactly what you want to see, especially after so much time owning the stock. But highly important, and I want to highlight that the P&L does not take into consideration dividends, and Starbucks is a great dividend payer in my opinion. When I had a look at the amount of dividends that I have received and also took into account the time that I have owned Starbucks stock, I come up with an annualized return of about -1%. So in my eyes, I'm virtually flat on the position here coming up on 3 years. As I'm sure you have noticed, and one of my key takeaways is that Starbucks' dividend is helping it out tremendously. If it weren't for all of the money that I have received quarterly from dividends, I would have looked at getting rid of this position forever ago. But the amount of dividends that Starbucks pays helps out tremendously, and that is something that I am keeping a close eye on moving forward with the stock, because obviously I would love for a stock to just shoot up in price and you can get the capital gains that way. But I also love a good stock that pays out a decent dividend that is sustainable. Very important that it is sustainable over time. So that is why I wanted to have a look specifically at the dividend, and as of right now, the current dividend yield for Starbucks is right around 3%. Not bad for a starting dividend yield. My personal dividend yield is about 2.7%, which makes sense because I was buying Starbucks at higher prices. I think when I first started my position, Starbucks was over $100. Not by much, but it was over $100. So as you can see, I'm sure you can understand why I have been frustrated with this stock, because it has been several years now, and all I have seen from the stock is just a perpetual move downwards. And I want to take a moment here, and if you have not watched those previous videos, I will leave a link up here for you so that you can go back, see my initial thoughts, and then come back to this video to see an update on the numbers, on what I think of the stock personally. And be sure to stick around until the end, because I'm going to give you my opinion on what I expect for Starbucks through the end of 2026. But continuing on with the video, we are at a payout ratio for Starbucks that is incredibly concerning. A payout ratio of over 150% as of the time of this recording in January of 2026. You do not want to see a payout ratio anywhere near 100%. So to be over 150%, we have to start raising the alarm here. Starbucks clearly has not been having a good time here when it comes to their earnings, and that is something that we are going to have a look at here when we look at their 10K in just a moment. But the one thing that I do like about Starbucks is that their 5-year compound annual growth rate is about 6.6%. Usually I prefer for my dividend stocks to have a compound annual growth rate of about 7 to 10%. So Starbucks is right around there. Can't really criticize them too much for that. And recently, if I'm remembering correctly, they did increase their dividend last year, but it was a tiny amount. I think I made a video about that as well, so if you would like to check that out, I'll leave a link for you as well. But considering all of the troubles that Starbucks has had, I completely understood why the CEO, Brian Nichols, wanted to hit the brakes a little bit on that growth rate when it comes to the dividend. But I hope that that can be corrected here in the short term, because I really do not want to see Starbucks increasing their dividend by, like 2% or something, barely keeping up with inflation, or in a worst case scenario, having to cut the dividend, which would be catastrophic for Starbucks stock price. But okay, I did a very brief analysis of their 10K, and when I had a look, let me just go ahead and tell you things are not looking good. Their revenue did go up compared to 2024, but it was a measly 3%. I mean, yeah, I guess it did go up, which is what you want to see, but a low single-digit figure is not what you want to see with a company of Starbucks' status or prestige. I mean, you want to see a strong single digit at the very least, if not hovering right around a double-digit figure for the top line. But even worse than that, with Starbucks coming up with negative 51% of net earnings compared to this time last year. Absolutely shambolic from Starbucks, but given all of the troubles that we have seen over the last couple of years, when I stop to think about it and ask myself, are you really surprised? My honest answer has to be no. Continuing on with our analysis of Starbucks' 10K, now I want to have a look at how much of a percentage the net income is compared to the total revenue that the company was able to bring in every single year. And again, Starbucks is moving in the wrong direction, at least over the last 3 years. 2025 in particular was completely catastrophic, with only about 5% of the total revenue making it down to the bottom line. For those of you who are new, ideally with a stock in the restaurant or food category of business, 10 to 15% is considered great. So barely eking by 5%, yeah, Brian Nichols has his work cut out for him here over the next couple of years, because this right here is not good. Not good by any stretch of the imagination. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Victor, if Starbucks is such a terrible stock, why aren't you selling? Why aren't you getting rid of this thing in your portfolio? Really, the main thing that is keeping my hopes here for Starbucks is the PE ratios. When I did an updated analysis on the PE ratios, I found that a fair trailing PE, in my opinion, for Starbucks is about a 37. That's pretty high for Starbucks. Let me go ahead and tell you that right now. But their forward PE ratio for 2026 is currently looking about a 35. So not much better, in the right direction at least, but not great. But when we have a look at 2027, so 2 years out, the forward PE ratio is looking to be about 28. So it looks like 2026 should be the year where Brian Nichols should be able to steer Starbucks here into the right direction again, where Brian Nichols is able to increase the revenue by at least middle digits, so maybe 5 to 7% on the top line, and we can absolutely start seeing some growth on the bottom line so that that payout ratio when it comes to the dividend doesn't look so terrible. I wanted to make this video here my first video of the year on Starbucks, because when I had a look at when their next earnings are, it's actually at the end of this month here in January. So I invite you to like the video if you made it this far, and subscribe so that you don't miss out on future videos, because I will be updating you on Starbucks' performance here when we have their next quarterly earnings, again, which should be around the end of January. I am looking forward to 2026. As always, I am a perma bull. I am optimistic going into every single year. I hope you are the same. And as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.